Question 1. The risk matrix shows that Project Alpha has a high probability of significant financial loss, but its successful completion is critical for achieving a key strategic objective related to market expansion. Project Beta has a low risk profile and moderate strategic alignment, while Project Gamma has a moderate risk profile and high strategic alignment, but requires substantial upfront investment. The organization has limited resources available for new initiatives this fiscal year. Which approach best ensures the project portfolio aligns with organizational strategy and manages risk effectively? Option A. Prioritize Project Gamma due to its high strategic alignment, while initiating Project Alpha with a robust risk mitigation plan and deferring Project Beta. Option B. Select Project Beta because of its low risk profile and delay both Project Alpha and Project Gamma until more resources are available. Option C. Focus on Project Gamma and Project Beta, as they represent a more balanced approach to risk and strategic contribution, and revisit Project Alpha in the next fiscal year. Option D. Initiate Project Alpha immediately due to its critical strategic importance, and then consider Project Beta and Project Gamma based on remaining resources. The correct answer is A. Prioritize Project Gamma due to its high strategic alignment, while initiating Project Alpha with a robust risk mitigation plan and deferring Project Beta. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing competing strategic objectives and resource constraints within a defined organizational portfolio. The project manager must ensure that the selection and prioritization of projects directly contribute to the overarching business strategy, as mandated by organizational governance and potentially by industry-specific regulations that emphasize responsible resource allocation and risk management. The need to align projects with strategy is paramount, as misaligned projects can lead to wasted investment, missed strategic opportunities, and failure to achieve desired business outcomes, all of which can have significant financial and reputational consequences. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to the principles of strategic portfolio management, which are implicitly or explicitly supported by project management standards and organizational governance frameworks. By prioritizing projects based on their alignment with strategic goals and their potential return on investment, while also considering resource availability and risk tolerance, the project manager ensures that the portfolio maximizes value for the organization. This approach is ethically sound as it promotes responsible stewardship of organizational resources and transparent decision-making. It also aligns with the PMP's emphasis on delivering value and achieving strategic objectives. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the perceived urgency of a project without a thorough strategic alignment assessment is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a lack of due diligence and can lead to the misallocation of resources to projects that do not contribute to the organization's long-term vision or regulatory compliance objectives. Ethically, it can be seen as a failure to act in the best interest of the organization by prioritizing short-term, potentially less impactful, demands over strategic imperatives. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes projects based on the enthusiasm of individual stakeholders, without a structured evaluation against strategic criteria, is also professionally flawed. This can lead to a portfolio that is fragmented, lacks clear direction, and is driven by personal agendas rather than organizational needs. This approach can create an environment where projects are selected for political reasons rather than strategic merit, undermining the integrity of the portfolio management process and potentially leading to the neglect of critical strategic initiatives. A third incorrect approach that selects projects solely based on their perceived ease of execution, without considering their strategic impact or risk, is professionally unsound. While efficiency is important, it should not come at the expense of strategic relevance. This approach risks building a portfolio of low-impact projects that consume resources without advancing the organization's strategic agenda or addressing significant risks, thereby failing to deliver meaningful value. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic evaluation of potential projects against established strategic objectives, risk appetite, and resource capacity. This includes conducting a thorough business case analysis for each project, assessing its alignment with the organization's mission and vision, and quantifying its potential benefits and risks. The process should involve clear criteria for prioritization and a transparent mechanism for decision-making, often involving a portfolio review board or steering committee. Question 2. The monitoring system demonstrates that the project is on track according to all key performance indicators, yet a key stakeholder has expressed significant concern about project delays. What is the most appropriate initial action for the project manager? Option A. Inform the stakeholder that the project is on track and that their perception of delays is inaccurate based on the monitoring system's output. Option B. Advise the stakeholder to review the project documentation independently to understand the actual progress. Option C. Schedule a meeting with the stakeholder to review the project's monitoring data and discuss their specific concerns, aiming to clarify the project status and understand their perspective. Option D. Immediately escalate the stakeholders' concerns to the project sponsor and senior management for their intervention. Correct answer is C. Schedule a meeting with the stakeholder to review the project's monitoring data and discuss their specific concerns, aiming to clarify the project status and understand their perspective. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a critical stakeholder whose perception of project progress is misaligned with the documented reality. This misalignment can lead to a loss of confidence, potential withdrawal of support, or even active opposition, jeopardizing the project's success. The project manager must navigate this situation with diplomacy, transparency, and a clear understanding of stakeholder needs and communication preferences, all while adhering to project governance and ethical standards. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively addressing the stakeholders' concerns by providing clear, concise, and factual information that bridges the perceived gap. This includes referencing the project's established monitoring system and communicating the actual status in a way that is understandable to the stakeholder. This aligns with the PMP's emphasis on effective stakeholder engagement, which requires understanding stakeholder expectations, managing them through open communication, and building trust. It upholds the ethical principle of honesty and transparency in all project dealings. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves dismissing the stakeholders' concerns without investigation. This is ethically unsound as it disregards a key stakeholder's perspective and can lead to a breakdown in trust and communication, violating the principle of respect for stakeholders. It also fails to address potential underlying issues that might be impacting the stakeholders' perception. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on the project's internal documentation without attempting to understand the stakeholders' perspective or how they are interpreting the information. This demonstrates a lack of empathy and a failure to adapt communication strategies to the stakeholders' needs, which is a core tenet of effective stakeholder management. It can be seen as a failure to engage stakeholders effectively. A third incorrect approach is to immediately escalate the issue to senior management without first attempting to resolve it directly with the stakeholder. While escalation can be necessary, bypassing direct communication and problem solving can be perceived as a lack of initiative and can damage the relationship with the stakeholder, potentially creating an adversarial dynamic rather than a collaborative one. This can also be seen as a failure to manage stakeholder expectations and conflicts proactively. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first seeking to understand the root cause of the stakeholder's perception. This involves active listening and asking clarifying questions. Once the discrepancy is understood, the project manager should leverage project data and establish communication channels to present an accurate picture, tailoring the message to the stakeholder's level of understanding and interest. Building and maintaining strong stakeholder relationships through consistent, honest, and transparent communication is paramount to project success. Question 3. Cost-benefit analysis shows that initiating the project immediately could yield significant early returns, but the project sponsor is pressing for a swift authorization process, suggesting that the project charter can be finalized after initial project activities have commenced. The project manager is concerned about the implications of this approach. Which of the following actions best represents professional project management practice in this situation? Option A. Prioritize the immediate commencement of project work to capture early returns, deferring the detailed definition of project goals, objectives, and scope until a later planning phase, with the understanding that the charter will be a less formal document. Option B. Advocate for the thorough development and approval of the project charter, clearly defining project goals, objectives, scope, stakeholders, and high-level requirements before seeking formal project authorization, even if it means a slight delay in commencing initial project activities. Option C. Begin project execution with a loosely defined scope and unconfirmed stakeholder buy-in, assuming that the project charter will be retroactively approved once initial momentum is built. Option D. Proceed with initial project activities as requested by the sponsor, focusing on securing funding and resources, and plan to formalize the project charter with detailed definitions later in the project lifecycle. The correct answer is B. Advocate for the thorough development and approval of the project charter, clearly defining project goals, objectives, scope, stakeholders, and high-level requirements before seeking formal project authorization, even if it means a slight delay in commencing initial project activities. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in project initiation, balancing the need for rapid project authorization with the imperative to establish a solid foundation for success. The project manager is under pressure to proceed, but shortcuts in defining critical charter elements can lead to significant downstream issues, including scope creep, stakeholder misalignment, and ultimately, project failure. The professional challenge lies in navigating these competing pressures while adhering to best practices and the guiding principles of project management as defined by the PMP framework. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the thorough development of the project charter as the foundational document for project authorization and execution. This aligns with the PMP framework's emphasis on clear definition of project goals, objectives, scope, stakeholders, and high-level requirements before formal authorization. Obtaining authorization based on a well-defined charter ensures that all key stakeholders are aligned, that the project's purpose is understood, and that the project manager has the necessary authority and clarity to proceed. This proactive approach mitigates risks and sets the stage for effective project planning and execution, adhering to the principle of establishing clear project governance from the outset. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with a loosely defined scope and unconfirmed stakeholder buy-in before formal charter approval represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates the PMP principle of establishing clear project boundaries and stakeholder engagement early in the project lifecycle. This can lead to misinterpretations of project objectives, unauthorized changes, and a lack of accountability, all of which are detrimental to project success and can lead to disputes and wasted resources. Another incorrect approach, which is to delay charter development until after the project has commenced, is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses the critical authorization step and the establishment of clear project parameters. It signifies a disregard for the formal project initiation process, potentially leading to a project operating without clear sponsorship, defined objectives, or authorized resources, which is a recipe for failure and a breach of professional project management standards. Finally, an approach that focuses solely on securing funding without adequately defining project objectives and scope is a failure to uphold professional responsibility. While funding is essential, it must be predicated on a clear understanding of what the project aims to achieve and its intended boundaries. Proceeding without this clarity can result in misallocated funds and a project that does not deliver the intended value, demonstrating a lack of due diligence and a failure to act in the best interest of the project and its stakeholders. A professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the project charter's role as the authoritative document for project initiation. Project managers must advocate for the time and resources necessary to develop a comprehensive charter, even under pressure. This involves clearly communicating the risks associated with skipping or rushing critical charter development steps to sponsors and stakeholders. The decision-making framework should prioritize adherence to established project management processes, stakeholder engagement, and risk mitigation, ensuring that authorization is granted based on a well-understood and agreed-upon project definition. Question 4. Stakeholder feedback indicates that current project performance reports are not consistently providing the insights needed for timely decision-making, and some reports are perceived as overly complex or irrelevant to specific stakeholder groups. As the project manager, which approach would best address these concerns while adhering to PMP principles? Option A. Rely solely on automated reporting tools to generate all performance reports, minimizing manual intervention and analysis. Option B. Implement a standardized one-size-fits-all reporting template for all project communications to simplify the reporting process. Option C. Conduct a thorough review and optimization of the entire performance reporting process, from data collection and analysis to report creation and distribution, to ensure relevance, clarity, and timeliness for all stakeholder groups. Option D. Increase the frequency of all existing project status reports to ensure stakeholders receive more up-to-date information, even if the content remains the same. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review and optimization of the entire performance reporting process, from data collection and analysis to report creation and distribution, to ensure relevance, clarity, and timeliness for all stakeholder groups. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the project manager to balance the need for timely and accurate performance reporting with the diverse information needs and communication preferences of various stakeholders. The project manager must ensure that the reporting process is efficient and effective, providing actionable insights without overwhelming stakeholders with unnecessary data or using formats they cannot easily interpret. The core of the challenge lies in optimizing the collection, analysis, and presentation of project data to support informed decision-making and maintain stakeholder confidence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the stakeholder feedback by focusing on process optimization. This involves systematically reviewing and improving how project data is gathered, analyzed, and reported. By identifying bottlenecks, inefficiencies, or gaps in the current reporting process, the project manager can implement changes that lead to more relevant, timely, and understandable performance reports. This aligns with the PMP's emphasis on continuous improvement and delivering value through effective project management practices, ensuring that reporting serves its intended purpose of informing and guiding project execution. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes transparency and effective communication with stakeholders, fostering trust and collaboration. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing the frequency of reports without addressing the underlying issues of data quality or relevance would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet the spirit of the feedback, potentially leading to information overload and a decrease in the perceived value of reporting. It also risks misallocating resources to report generation rather than project execution. Ethically, this could be seen as a superficial response that does not genuinely address stakeholder concerns. Another incorrect approach that involves standardizing all reports to a single, generic format, regardless of stakeholder needs, would also be professionally unacceptable. This ignores the diversity of stakeholder requirements and may result in reports that are not tailored to specific audiences, hindering their ability to extract meaningful insights. This can lead to misinterpretations or a lack of engagement from key stakeholders, undermining the purpose of performance reporting. Ethically, this demonstrates a lack of consideration for stakeholder communication preferences and needs. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on automated reporting tools without human oversight or critical analysis would be professionally unacceptable. While automation can improve efficiency, it cannot replace the project manager's judgment in interpreting data, identifying trends, and providing context. Over-reliance on automation without critical analysis can lead to the dissemination of inaccurate or misleading information, potentially causing significant project issues. Ethically, this represents a failure to exercise due diligence in ensuring the accuracy and integrity of project information. Professionals should approach this situation by first actively listening to and understanding the specific nature of the stakeholder feedback. This involves asking clarifying questions to pinpoint the exact issues with current reporting. Then, they should analyze the existing performance reporting process, from data collection to report distribution, to identify areas for improvement. This analysis should consider efficiency, accuracy, relevance, and clarity. Based on this analysis, the project manager should develop and implement targeted process optimizations, such as refining data sources, improving analysis techniques, or customizing report formats for different stakeholder groups. Finally, they should solicit further feedback to ensure the implemented changes are effective and continue to iterate on the process as needed. Question 5. Compliance review shows that a key stakeholder who previously approved the project scope statement and work breakdown structure, WBS, has now requested a significant modification to a deliverable that was clearly defined and agreed upon in the scope baseline. The project manager is aware that implementing this change without proper procedure could lead to scope creep and impact project timelines and budget. What is the most appropriate course of action for the project manager to take in this situation? Option A. Directly agree to the stakeholders' request and inform the team to start working on the modification, assuming the stakeholders' approval is sufficient. Option B. Initiate the formal change control process by documenting the stakeholders' request as a change request and assessing its impact on the project's scope, schedule, cost, and quality. Option C. Politely inform the stakeholder that the scope baseline has been approved and that no changes can be made, effectively ignoring the request. Option D. Implement the requested change immediately to ensure stakeholder satisfaction and avoid potential conflict, as the stakeholder has the authority to request it. Correct answer is B. Initiate the formal change control process by documenting the stakeholder's request as a change request and assessing its impact on the project's scope, schedule, cost, and quality. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in project management where a key stakeholder, despite initial agreement, attempts to introduce significant changes to the project scope after the scope baseline has been formally approved. The challenge lies in balancing the need to satisfy stakeholder expectations and adapt to evolving requirements with the imperative to maintain project control, adhere to the established scope baseline, and prevent uncontrolled scope creep. Failure to manage this situation effectively can lead to budget overruns, schedule delays, reduced quality, and ultimately, project failure. The project manager must navigate this delicate situation by strictly adhering to the defined scope management processes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves formally initiating the change control process. This aligns with the principles of scope management as defined by the Project Management Institute, PMI, and is a cornerstone of regulatory compliance in project execution. The PMI's framework, which is the basis for the PMP exam, emphasizes the importance of a documented and controlled change process. By requiring a formal change request, the project manager ensures that the proposed change is properly documented, its impact on scope, schedule, cost, and quality is assessed, and it is reviewed by the appropriate authority, e.g., the Change Control Board. This process protects the integrity of the scope baseline, prevents scope creep, and ensures that any approved changes are integrated into the project plan in a controlled manner. This adherence to process is ethically sound, as it promotes transparency, accountability, and responsible resource management. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the change immediately without a formal process is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the established change control procedures, which are designed to protect the project from uncontrolled scope expansion. This action directly contributes to scope creep, violating the principle of maintaining a defined and agreed-upon scope baseline. Ethically, it undermines the integrity of the project management process and can lead to unfair resource allocation and unmet stakeholder expectations for those who were not involved in this informal decision. Ignoring the stakeholder's request entirely is also professionally unacceptable and can be considered an ethical failure. While maintaining scope control is crucial, disregarding a stakeholder's input, especially from a key stakeholder, can damage relationships, lead to dissatisfaction, and potentially result in the project not meeting its intended business objectives. It fails to acknowledge the importance of stakeholder engagement and communication, which are fundamental to successful project delivery. Directly agreeing to the change without assessing its impact is another failure. This approach, similar to implementing the change immediately, bypasses the critical impact analysis phase of the change control process. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to uphold the project manager's responsibility to protect the project's constraints. This can lead to unforeseen consequences, such as exceeding budget or missing deadlines, which are detrimental to project success and can have regulatory implications if contractual obligations are breached. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the established project governance and scope management plan. The decision-making process should involve 1. Recognizing the stakeholder's request as a potential change to the scope. 2. Immediately referencing the project's change control process. 3. Guiding the stakeholder to submit a formal change request. 4. Facilitating the impact assessment of the proposed change. 5. Presenting the findings to the relevant authority for a decision. This systematic approach ensures that all decisions are documented, justified, and aligned with project objectives and constraints, thereby upholding professional standards and regulatory requirements. Question 6. Assessment of the project manager's immediate action upon learning that a high-impact, high-probability risk, previously identified and documented in the risk register with a planned mitigation strategy, has now occurred and is actively affecting project progress. Option A. Begin developing a completely new risk response strategy from scratch, without referencing the existing risk register or planned responses. Option B. Immediately initiate the predefined risk response plan documented in the risk register for this specific risk. Option C. Immediately escalate the issue to senior management for guidance and decision-making, without any initial attempt to implement a planned response. Option D. Instruct the team to continue working as if the risk has not materialized, hoping the impact will be negligible. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate the predefined risk response plan documented in the risk register for this specific risk. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in risk management where a critical risk, identified early, has materialized. The project manager must now decide how to react, balancing the immediate need to address the impact with the long-term implications for project objectives and stakeholder confidence. The challenge lies in selecting the most effective and compliant response strategy when faced with a known, high-impact risk event. The PMP framework emphasizes proactive risk management, but also robust response planning and execution when risks occur. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately activating the predefined risk response plan for this specific risk. This aligns with best professional practice as outlined in the PMP framework. The framework stresses the importance of having documented and agreed-upon responses for identified risks. Implementing the planned response ensures a structured, efficient, and predictable reaction, minimizing disruption and maximizing the chances of achieving project objectives. This proactive stance, based on prior analysis and planning, demonstrates due diligence and adherence to the principles of effective risk management. It also ensures that the response is aligned with the project's risk appetite and tolerance, as determined during the planning phases. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves improvising a response without consulting the risk register or pre-approved plans. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses the established risk management process. It introduces a high likelihood of an ineffective or even detrimental response, potentially exacerbating the problem. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of preparedness and a failure to uphold the responsibilities of a project manager to manage risks systematically. It also undermines stakeholder trust, as they expect a structured approach to managing project uncertainties. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the materialized risk, hoping it will resolve itself or have minimal impact. This is a direct violation of risk management principles and professional ethics. It represents a failure to monitor and control risks, a core responsibility. Such inaction can lead to significant project delays, cost overruns, and scope creep, ultimately jeopardizing project success. It also demonstrates a lack of accountability and a disregard for the potential consequences to the project and its stakeholders. A third incorrect approach is to immediately escalate the issue to senior management without attempting to implement any part of the predefined response plan. While escalation may be necessary at some point, bypassing the initial implementation of a planned response is inefficient and suggests a lack of confidence in the risk management process itself. It can also create unnecessary alarm among senior stakeholders and may lead to rushed, poorly considered decisions from above. Professionally, the project manager is expected to lead the response to identified risks, utilizing the tools and plans developed during the project lifecycle. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first referencing the risk register and the associated risk response plan for the materialized risk. This document should contain the agreed-upon strategy, contingency measures, and responsible parties. The project manager's role is to ensure this plan is executed promptly and effectively. If the plan proves insufficient or the situation has evolved beyond its scope, then a revised response strategy, potentially involving further analysis and stakeholder consultation, should be developed and implemented. Continuous monitoring and control of the risk and its response are paramount throughout this process. Question 7. Comparative studies suggest that effective issue management is crucial for project success. A key stakeholder, who is not part of the core project team but has significant influence, approaches the project manager directly with a concern about a potential technical flaw in a recently delivered component. This concern was not previously logged in the project's official issue tracking system. How should the project manager best address this situation to ensure proper issue resolution and maintain stakeholder relationships? Option A. Document the stakeholder's concern as a new issue in the project's issue log, assess its potential impact on project objectives, and initiate the defined resolution and escalation procedures. Option B. Inform the stakeholder that issues must be formally submitted through the project's established channels and that their concern cannot be addressed until it is logged in the system. Option C. Immediately escalate the stakeholder's concern to the project sponsor and senior management, requesting their intervention to resolve the potential technical flaw. Option D. Assure the stakeholder that the concern will be investigated and resolved promptly without formally logging it, to avoid creating unnecessary administrative overhead. The correct answer is A. Document the stakeholder's concern as a new issue in the project's issue log, assess its potential impact on project objectives, and initiate the defined resolution and escalation procedures. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a critical stakeholder expressing a significant concern that could impact project scope, schedule, and budget. The project manager must balance the need for timely issue resolution with the imperative to maintain stakeholder trust and ensure adherence to established project governance. The challenge lies in accurately assessing the issue's impact, determining the appropriate resolution path, and communicating effectively with all involved parties, especially when the issue is raised outside of formal channels. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the stakeholder's concern through the established issue management process. By documenting the issue, assessing its impact, and initiating the resolution process, the project manager demonstrates proactive and systematic problem solving. This aligns with the PMP's emphasis on structured project management methodologies, which include robust issue tracking and escalation procedures. This approach ensures transparency, accountability, and a data-driven decision-making process, thereby upholding ethical standards of professional conduct by treating all stakeholders equitably and managing project risks effectively. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves dismissing the stakeholder's concern because it was not raised through the formal issue log. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it neglects a critical stakeholder input, potentially leading to unmanaged risks and dissatisfaction. It violates the principle of inclusive stakeholder engagement and can be seen as a failure to act with due diligence in identifying and addressing potential project impediments. Another incorrect approach is to immediately escalate the issue to senior management without attempting any initial assessment or resolution. This bypasses the defined escalation procedures and can lead to unnecessary disruption and overburdening of higher management. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of initiative and problem-solving capability on the part of the project manager, failing to manage the issue at the lowest possible level as per best practices. A third incorrect approach is to promise a quick fix without understanding the full scope or impact of the issue. This is a failure in professional integrity and can lead to unrealistic expectations, further stakeholder dissatisfaction, and potential rework. It violates the ethical obligation to be truthful and transparent with stakeholders about project status and potential outcomes. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic and transparent approach to issue management. This involves actively listening to stakeholder concerns, regardless of the channel through which they are raised. The first step should always be to document the issue, even if it's a preliminary entry, to ensure it is not lost. Subsequently, the project manager must assess the issue's potential impact on project objectives and determine the appropriate resolution path, which may involve internal team efforts or escalation according to the project's defined escalation matrix. Continuous tracking and communication are vital throughout the resolution process to maintain stakeholder confidence and project momentum. Question 8. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a key project team is experiencing significant delays due to members prioritizing their functional department's tasks over project deliverables, leading to a lack of clear ownership and reduced team cohesion. The project manager observes that team members seem disengaged and are not proactively addressing project roadblocks. What is the most effective approach for the project manager to address this situation? Option A. Implement a strict performance monitoring system for each team member, focusing solely on their individual project task completion rates. Option B. Inform each team member's functional manager about their lack of project focus and request that they enforce project task completion. Option C. Immediately escalate the issue to the project sponsor and request intervention to reassign team members or reallocate resources. Option D. Schedule a team meeting to facilitate a discussion on project priorities, clarify roles and responsibilities, and collaboratively define ownership for critical tasks, ensuring alignment with project objectives. The correct answer is D. Schedule a team meeting to facilitate a discussion on project priorities, clarify roles and responsibilities, and collaboratively define ownership for critical tasks, ensuring alignment with project objectives. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because the project manager must navigate a situation where team members have conflicting priorities and a lack of clear ownership, directly impacting project progress and potentially leading to scope creep or missed deadlines. The project manager's ability to effectively lead, motivate, and resolve conflict is paramount. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the root causes of the team's disengagement and lack of clarity. By facilitating a team discussion to clarify roles, responsibilities, and priorities, the project manager empowers the team to take ownership and aligns their efforts with project objectives. This aligns with PMP principles of fostering a collaborative environment, promoting clear communication, and ensuring team accountability. It also implicitly supports ethical considerations by ensuring fair distribution of work and clear expectations, preventing potential burnout or resentment. An incorrect approach that involves the project manager unilaterally assigning tasks without team input fails to address the underlying issue of ownership and motivation. This can lead to resentment, decreased morale, and a lack of commitment from team members who feel their contributions are not valued or understood. Ethically, this approach could be seen as micromanagement and a failure to foster a self-organizing team, which are core tenets of modern project management. Another incorrect approach, such as escalating the issue to senior management immediately without attempting internal resolution, demonstrates a lack of leadership and problem-solving skills. This can undermine team autonomy and create a perception of the project manager being unable to manage their team effectively. It also bypasses opportunities for team growth and development in conflict resolution and collaborative problem-solving, which are essential for long-term team success. A further incorrect approach, focusing solely on individual performance metrics without addressing the team dynamics, ignores the systemic issues contributing to the problem. While individual performance is important, a dysfunctional team environment will inevitably hinder individual contributions. This approach fails to recognize the interconnectedness of team performance and the project manager's role in fostering a cohesive and productive unit. The professional reasoning process for this situation should involve 1. Active listening to understand the team's concerns and perspectives. 2. Facilitating open and honest communication to identify the core issues. 3. Collaboratively developing solutions with the team, emphasizing shared ownership and accountability. 4. Implementing agreed-upon actions and monitoring their effectiveness. 5. Providing ongoing support and coaching to the team. Question 9. To address the challenge of a key stakeholder demanding a significantly accelerated project completion date, which is demonstrably unachievable based on the current critical path analysis and estimated activity durations, what is the most ethical and professionally responsible course of action for the project manager? Option A. Inform the stakeholder that the requested date is impossible and refuse to proceed with schedule development until a more realistic date is provided. Option B. Proceed with the project using the original, realistic schedule, but avoid discussing the stakeholder's requested date to prevent conflict. Option C. Present the detailed critical path analysis and duration estimates to the stakeholder, explaining the implications of the current schedule and proposing alternative strategies to potentially expedite the project without compromising quality or introducing undue risk. Option D. Adjust the activity durations and dependencies in the project schedule to artificially meet the stakeholder's requested completion date, without disclosing the manipulation. The correct answer is C. Present the detailed critical path analysis and duration estimates to the stakeholder, explaining the implications of the current schedule, and proposing alternative strategies to potentially expedite the project without compromising quality or introducing undue risk. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in project management, where pressure to meet aggressive schedule targets conflicts with the integrity of the schedule management process and the accuracy of project information. The challenge lies in balancing stakeholder expectation for timely delivery with the project manager's responsibility to develop and maintain a realistic and achievable schedule. A project manager must uphold professional integrity and adhere to ethical principles, even when faced with external pressures. The correct approach involves transparently communicating the findings of the schedule analysis and advocating for a realistic schedule baseline, even if it means adjusting stakeholder expectations. This aligns with the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, specifically the principles of honesty and responsibility. By presenting the data-driven analysis and explaining the implications of the critical path, the project manager demonstrates integrity and a commitment to accurate project information. This fosters trust with stakeholders and allows for informed decision-making regarding resource allocation, risk management, and potential scope adjustments. It upholds the integrity of the schedule baseline as a tool for control and performance measurement. An incorrect approach would be to manipulate the schedule data to meet the arbitrary deadline without a sound basis. This violates the principle of honesty by misrepresenting project status and the principle of responsibility by failing to provide accurate information for decision-making. Could lead to unrealistic expectations, resource overallocation, increased risk of failure, and damage to the project manager's and organization's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the critical path findings and proceed without addressing the identified risks. This demonstrates a lack of responsibility and could result in significant delays and cost overruns, as the project manager would not be proactively managing the most critical elements of the project. Furthermore, failing to communicate the schedule challenges to stakeholders is a breach of honesty and responsibility, as it deprives them of the information needed to make informed decisions. Professionals should approach such situations by first conducting a thorough and objective schedule analysis, including identifying the critical path and understanding its implications. They should then prepare to clearly and concisely communicate their findings to stakeholders, supported by data. The decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the ethical obligations and professional standards. 2. Analyzing the project data objectively. 3. Identifying potential risks and impacts of different schedule scenarios. 4. Communicating findings transparently and advocating for a realistic plan. 5. Collaborating with stakeholders to find viable solutions, which might include scope adjustments, resource enhancements, or risk mitigation strategies, rather than compromising schedule integrity. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that the project team is experiencing significant delays and quality issues due to a lack of specialized skills and inconsistent performance. The project manager has been primarily focused on assigning tasks and ensuring that physical resources are available, but has not invested in team training or performance improvement initiatives. Which approach to resource management best aligns with the PMP framework and addresses the current challenges? Option A. Implement a comprehensive resource management plan that includes detailed resource requirement planning, strategic acquisition of skilled resources, proactive team development through training and coaching, and ongoing performance management, utilizing resource leveling and smoothing techniques as needed. Option B. Assign tasks based on immediate availability, without considering individual strengths or development needs, and address performance issues only when they become critical. Option C. Immediately reallocate resources from other projects that are perceived as less critical, without consulting their respective project managers or assessing the impact on those projects. Option D. Focus on acquiring the least expensive resources available to meet immediate task requirements, assuming that on-the-job learning will compensate for any skill gaps over time. The correct answer is A. Implement a comprehensive resource management plan that includes detailed resource requirement planning, strategic acquisition of skilled resources, proactive team development through training and coaching, and ongoing performance management, utilizing resource leveling and smoothing techniques as needed. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing competing demands for limited resources and team capabilities against project timelines and quality expectations. all while adhering to the principles and guidelines of the Project Management Professional (PMP) framework. The project manager must make strategic decisions about resource allocation and team development that impact not only the current project, but also future project endeavors and organizational capacity. Careful judgment is required to ensure that resource decisions are aligned with project objectives and organizational strategy, and that team members are effectively utilized and developed. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and integrated strategy for resource management. This involves detailed planning of resource requirements based on project scope and activities, followed by strategic acquisition of the necessary human and physical resources. Crucially, it emphasizes developing the project team through training, coaching, and team-building activities to enhance performance and foster collaboration. Ongoing management of the project team, including performance monitoring and conflict resolution, ensures that the team operates effectively. Techniques like resource leveling and smoothing are applied judiciously to optimize resource utilization without compromising project timelines or team morale. This holistic approach aligns with the PMP framework's emphasis on stakeholder engagement, risk management, and delivering value, ensuring that resource management contributes directly to project success and organizational goals. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on acquiring the cheapest available resources without considering their skill sets or team fit represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This violates the PMP principle of ensuring competence and due diligence in resource acquisition, potentially leading to project delays, cost overruns, and compromised quality. It also fails to uphold the ethical obligation to act with integrity and in the best interest of the project and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach that neglects team development and focuses only on assigning tasks without fostering collaboration or addressing performance issues is professionally unacceptable. This disregards the PMP guideline on developing the project team, which is critical for building a high-performing unit. Ethically, it fails to provide a supportive and growth-oriented environment for team members, potentially leading to burnout and dissatisfaction. A third incorrect approach that involves arbitrarily reassigning resources between projects without proper impact analysis or stakeholder consultation demonstrates a failure to manage resources effectively and ethically. This can disrupt multiple projects, damage stakeholder relationships, and violate the PMP principle of responsible resource management. It shows a lack of foresight and strategic thinking, prioritizing short-term fixes over long-term project health and organizational stability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of resource needs against available capacity, considering both quantitative requirements and qualitative aspects like skills and experience. Project managers should leverage planning tools and techniques to forecast resource demands accurately. When acquiring resources, they must adhere to organizational procurement policies and ethical standards, ensuring fair and transparent selection. Team development should be an ongoing process, integrated into project execution, with a focus on building trust, enhancing skills, and promoting effective communication. Resource leveling and smoothing should be applied thoughtfully, considering their impact on project schedule, cost, and team well-being. Throughout the process, open communication with stakeholders and adherence to the PMP Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct are paramount. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals that a significant portion of project delays and stakeholder dissatisfaction stems from a lack of clarity regarding project status and upcoming activities. The project manager is tasked with improving the communication process. Which of the following strategies best addresses this challenge within the PMP framework? Option A. Increase the frequency of all project status reports, sending them to every stakeholder daily, regardless of their specific information requirements. Option B. Implement a comprehensive communication management plan that defines stakeholder communication needs, specifies appropriate methods, channels, and frequencies for different stakeholder groups, and includes a feedback mechanism for continuous improvement. Option C. Focus exclusively on formal written reports, ensuring all communication is documented, but neglecting to consider the timeliness or relevance of the information for various stakeholders. Option D. Rely solely on informal conversations and ad hoc email updates to disseminate project information, assuming stakeholders will seek out the information they need. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive communication management plan that defines stakeholder communication needs, specifies appropriate methods, channels, and frequencies for different stakeholder groups, and includes a feedback mechanism for continuous improvement. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for timely and accurate project information with the potential for information overload and misinterpretation. The project manager must ensure that communication plans are not just created, but are actively and effectively implemented to support project objectives and stakeholder engagement. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate communication methods, channels, and frequencies to meet diverse stakeholder needs without creating undue burden. Correct approach represents best professional practice because it aligns with the principles of effective communication management as outlined in the PMP framework. This involves a proactive and tailored approach to planning, managing, and monitoring communications. By regularly reviewing and adjusting the communication plan based on feedback and project progress, the project manager ensures that information flows efficiently, stakeholders remain informed and engaged, and potential issues are identified and addressed promptly. This adherence to a structured and adaptive communication process is ethically sound as it promotes transparency, accountability, and stakeholder satisfaction, all of which are fundamental to successful project delivery and professional integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on broadcasting all available data without considering the audience's needs or the purpose of the communication fails ethically by potentially misleading stakeholders or wasting their time, thus undermining trust in project progress. This can be seen as a failure in due diligence and a disregard for the principle of providing relevant and timely information. Another incorrect approach that relies on ad hoc communication without a documented plan is professionally unsound and ethically questionable, lacks the structure and accountability necessary for effective project management. This can lead to misinformation, inconsistent messaging, and a lack of auditable communication records, which can have serious consequences for project success and may violate professional standards of diligence and organization. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes only formal reporting channels, neglecting informal communication methods, can lead to a disconnect between the project team and stakeholders. This failure to utilize a comprehensive communication strategy can result in a lack of buy-in, unaddressed concerns, and a perception of the project being managed in a vacuum, which is professionally deficient and can erode stakeholder confidence. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough stakeholder analysis to understand their information needs, preferences, and communication styles. The project manager should then develop a communication management plan that outlines the purpose, audience, method, channel, frequency, and owner for each communication. This plan should be a living document, regularly reviewed and updated based on project progress, stakeholder feedback, and changes in the project environment. The emphasis should always be on delivering the right information to the right people at the right time through the right channel, in the right format, and at the right cost. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that outsourcing the development of a critical software module offers significant potential cost savings and access to specialized expertise. However, the exact technical requirements are still evolving, and the project team anticipates some changes during the development process. The project manager needs to select a contract type that balances cost control with flexibility to accommodate these anticipated changes, while also ensuring the vendor is motivated to deliver high-quality work efficiently. Option A, a fixed-price contract with clearly defined scope and provisions for change management. Option B, a fixed-price contract with detailed, rigid specifications. Option C, a cost-reimbursable contract with minimal oversight. Option D, a cost-plus fixed-fee contract with broad performance objectives. The correct answer is B, a fixed-price contract with detailed, rigid specifications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because the project manager must balance the immediate cost savings of a fixed-price contract against the potential risks of scope creep and unforeseen complexities that could lead to disputes and delays. The need to select a vendor who can deliver the required quality within the fixed budget, while also ensuring the contract terms adequately protect the project's interests, requires careful judgment. The project manager must also consider the long-term implications of the contract type on the vendor relationship and the overall project success. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves selecting a fixed-price contract with clearly defined scope and detailed specifications. This aligns with best practices in procurement management under the PMP framework, which emphasizes establishing clear expectations to mitigate risks. A fixed-price contract is suitable when the scope is well-defined and unlikely to change significantly, providing cost certainty for the buyer. The emphasis on detailed specifications ensures that the vendor understands the exact requirements, reducing the likelihood of disputes over deliverables and quality. This approach promotes accountability and predictability, crucial for project success. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing a cost-reimbursable contract without a strong justification for scope uncertainty or the need for extensive research and development would be an ethical failure. This contract type offers less cost certainty and can lead to overspending if not managed rigorously. It shifts more risk to the buyer and requires extensive oversight to prevent contractor inefficiency. Selecting a fixed-price contract but with vague or incomplete specifications is a regulatory and ethical failure. This creates ambiguity, increasing the risk of disputes, scope creep, and potential quality issues. It violates the principle of clear communication and mutual understanding required in contractual agreements, potentially leading to claims and legal challenges. Opting for a cost-plus incentive fee contract without a clear understanding of the performance metrics and incentive structure is also problematic. While this contract type can motivate vendors, poorly defined incentives can lead to unintended consequences or disputes over performance achievement, undermining the intended benefits and potentially leading to an adversarial relationship. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach procurement by first thoroughly understanding the project's scope, risks, and objectives. A detailed cost-benefit analysis, as indicated, should inform the choice of contract type. The project manager should then develop comprehensive procurement documents, including clear statements of work and detailed specifications. Vendor selection should be based on a robust evaluation process that considers technical capability, financial stability, and past performance, in addition to price. Throughout the procurement lifecycle, proactive contract administration and clear communication are essential to manage risks and ensure successful project outcomes. Question 13. Consider a scenario where a project has successfully delivered its primary product to the client, and the client has indicated satisfaction with the functionality. However, the project manager is aware that some minor administrative tasks, such as final invoice reconciliation and the formal handover of all project documentation to the operations team, are still pending. The project manager is under pressure to close the project quickly to free up resources for a new initiative. What is the most appropriate approach to project closure in this situation? Option A. Declare the project closed based on the client's satisfaction with the product and initiate the reallocation of project resources, assuming administrative tasks will be handled organically. Option B. Proceed with formal project closure only after all administrative tasks, including final invoice reconciliation and complete documentation handover, are verified as completed and accepted. Option C. Formally close the project, documenting the pending administrative tasks as follow-up items for the operations team, and immediately reallocate project resources. Option D. Initiate the closure process by focusing on the immediate reallocation of project resources, and then address any remaining administrative tasks as a separate post-project activity. Correct answer is C. Formally close the project, documenting the pending administrative tasks as follow-up items for the operations team, and immediately reallocate project resources. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in project closure, balancing the need for formal completion with the practical realities of ongoing stakeholder engagement and knowledge transfer. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that project closure activities are not merely administrative tasks, but contribute to organizational learning and future project success, while also adhering to established project management principles and organizational policies. Careful judgment is required to determine the most effective and compliant method for finalizing project deliverables and formally releasing project resources. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it emphasizes the systematic verification of all project objectives and deliverables against the project management plan and stakeholder expectations. This aligns with the PMI's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, particularly the responsibility to deliver value and uphold professional standards. By ensuring all contractual obligations are met, final documentation is complete, and lessons learned are captured and disseminated, the project manager demonstrates accountability and contributes to organizational knowledge management. This thoroughness minimizes the risk of future disputes, ensures proper resource reallocation, and provides a clear basis for evaluating project success. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the completion of the final deliverable, without verifying acceptance and closing out administrative tasks, is professionally unacceptable. This failure to confirm stakeholder acceptance can lead to disputes, unmet expectations, and potential financial or reputational damage, violating the PMI's responsibility to deliver value. Another incorrect approach that prematurely releases project resources without completing all closure activities risks incomplete documentation, unaddressed risks, and a lack of formal closure, which can hinder future audits or knowledge retrieval, and contravenes the PMI's responsibility to uphold professional standards. Finally, an approach that bypasses the formal lessons learned process, even if the project was technically successful, represents a significant missed opportunity for organizational improvement and violates the spirit of continuous learning and professional development inherent in project management best practices. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the project management plan, organizational policies, and the PMI's code of ethics. This involves a systematic review of all closure criteria, active engagement with stakeholders to confirm acceptance, meticulous documentation, and a dedicated effort to capture and share lessons learned. When faced with competing priorities, professionals must evaluate the potential impact on project value, stakeholder satisfaction, organizational learning, and compliance with ethical and professional standards before making a decision. Question 14. The investigation demonstrates that a critical path activity is significantly behind schedule, jeopardizing the project's final delivery date. The project manager has identified the delay but needs to determine the most appropriate next step to regain control of the schedule. Option A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the delay, evaluate potential corrective actions, and then propose a revised plan to stakeholders for approval before implementation. Option B. Immediately reassign resources from less critical tasks to the delayed activity and inform stakeholders of the revised projected completion date. Option C. Inform stakeholders that the schedule is at risk and await their direction on how to proceed. Option D. Increase the working hours for the team assigned to the delayed activity without further analysis to expedite its completion. The correct answer is B. Immediately reassign resources from less critical tasks to the delayed activity and inform stakeholders of the revised projected completion date. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common challenge in project management, a significant schedule deviation that threatens a critical milestone. The project manager must not only identify the root cause, but also implement effective control measures that align with PMP best practices, which are grounded in the PMI's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct and the principles outlined in the PMBOK Guide. The challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate corrective action with the requirement for thorough analysis and stakeholder communication, ensuring that any proposed solution is sustainable and does not introduce new risks. The correct approach involves a systematic process of analyzing the schedule variance, identifying the root cause of the delay, and then developing and implementing a corrective action plan that addresses the identified cause. This plan should be communicated to stakeholders, and its effectiveness should be monitored. This aligns with the PMP's emphasis on proactive risk management and data-driven decision-making, ensuring that actions are not reactive but strategic. It upholds the PMI's ethical standards by promoting transparency, accountability, and responsible resource management. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a drastic measure without understanding the underlying issue. For instance, simply adding resources to all delayed tasks without a root cause analysis might lead to increased costs, communication overhead, and potential inefficiencies, failing to address the actual problem, and potentially violating the duty of care to the project and its stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to delay reporting the deviation or to present incomplete information to stakeholders. This breaches the ethical obligation of honesty and transparency, potentially leading to misinformed decisions by stakeholders and eroding trust. Furthermore, implementing a corrective action without proper impact assessment or stakeholder buy-in could lead to resistance and further project disruption, demonstrating a lack of professional judgment and adherence to collaborative project management principles. Professionals should approach such situations by first gathering all relevant data to understand the extent and nature of the schedule variance. This involves reviewing the current schedule against the baseline, analyzing performance metrics, and conducting a root cause analysis. Once the cause is identified, potential corrective actions should be evaluated based on their feasibility, impact on cost and scope, and their ability to bring the project back on track. The chosen action should then be communicated to the project team and stakeholders, and a plan for monitoring its effectiveness must be established. This structured, analytical, and communicative approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with project objectives. Question 15. Upon reviewing the project closure phase, the project manager discovers that while the primary deliverables have been handed over to the client, formal sign-off is pending due to minor, outstanding clarifications from the client's side. The project team is eager to move to new assignments, and the project budget is nearly depleted, creating pressure to finalize the project quickly. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure a compliant and effective project closure? Option A. Proceed with formal project closure, documenting the pending clarifications as known issues to be addressed post-closure, and initiate the process for closing contracts and archiving documentation. Option B. Focus on archiving all project documentation and closing contracts immediately, deferring the formal stakeholder acceptance and lessons learned session to a later, unspecified date. Option C. Expedite the closure process by formally closing the project based on the physical handover of deliverables, assuming the client's clarifications are minor and will be resolved informally. Option D. Delay formal project closure until all client clarifications are resolved and formal acceptance of deliverables is obtained, while simultaneously initiating the lessons learned session and contract closure activities. The correct answer is A. Proceed with formal project closure, documenting the pending clarifications as known issues to be addressed post-closure, and initiate the process for closing contracts and archiving documentation. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in project closure: the tension between timely project completion and thorough documentation, particularly regarding lessons learned and contract finalization. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to formally close the project with the long-term organizational benefit derived from capturing and disseminating project knowledge. Stakeholder acceptance of deliverables is a critical gate, but its absence or ambiguity can delay formal closure, impacting resource reallocation and future project planning. The correct approach emphasizes a structured and comprehensive closure process that aligns with best practices for project management, as outlined by the Project Management Institute, PMI. Obtaining formal stakeholder acceptance of deliverables is paramount because it signifies that the project has met its objectives and delivered the intended value. Conducting a thorough post-project review and meticulously documenting lessons learned are essential for organizational learning and continuous improvement, directly contributing to the efficiency and effectiveness of future projects. Closing contracts properly ensures all financial and legal obligations are met, preventing future disputes or liabilities. Archiving project documentation provides a historical record for audits, future reference, and knowledge transfer. This holistic approach ensures that the project's success is not only recognized, but also contributes to the organization's overall knowledge base and operational maturity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on expediting the closure by bypassing formal stakeholder acceptance is professionally unacceptable. This failure to secure definitive acceptance means the project's objectives may not have been fully met, potentially leading to scope creep, unresolved issues, or dissatisfaction that could resurface later, undermining the perceived success of the project and potentially leading to rework or claims. It also bypasses a critical control point for ensuring quality and alignment with business needs. Another incorrect approach that neglects the detailed documentation of lessons learned and contract closure, prioritizing only the physical handover of deliverables, is also professionally deficient. This oversight deprives the organization of valuable insights that could prevent recurring problems or replicate successes in future projects. It also leaves contractual loose ends, which can result in financial discrepancies, legal complications, and damage to the organization's reputation. A third incorrect approach that involves archiving incomplete or disorganized project documentation, while technically closing the project, fails to serve its intended purpose. This makes it difficult or impossible for future project teams or auditors to access necessary information, hindering knowledge transfer and potentially leading to compliance issues or inefficient decision-making. It represents a failure to uphold the principle of accountability and knowledge management. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established project management processes and standards. This involves clearly defining closure criteria, ensuring all required activities are completed and verified, and actively engaging stakeholders throughout the closure phase. The process should be iterative, allowing for feedback and adjustments, and should always aim to maximize the value derived from the project, not just its formal termination. Question 16. The audit findings indicate a pattern of recurring project issues that were previously identified as lessons learned, but were not effectively addressed in subsequent projects. Which of the following approaches best addresses this systemic failure and promotes process optimization? Option A. Conduct informal lessons learned sessions at the end of each project, encouraging team members to share insights verbally during project closure meetings. Option B. Create a centralized repository for lessons learned documentation, accessible to all project teams, with the expectation that individuals will proactively search for and apply relevant information. Option C. Focus on identifying lessons learned only at the conclusion of a project, ensuring they are thoroughly documented for historical reference. Option D. Establish a formal, integrated process for identifying, documenting, systematically sharing, and actively implementing lessons learned throughout the project lifecycle and into future project planning. The correct answer is D. Establish a formal, integrated process for identifying, documenting, systematically sharing, and actively implementing lessons learned throughout the project lifecycle and into future project planning. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The audit findings highlight a recurring pattern of project issues that were previously identified as lessons learned, but were not effectively addressed in subsequent projects. This scenario is professionally challenging because it points to a systemic failure in the organization's project management processes, specifically in the utilization of historical project knowledge. The challenge lies not just in identifying lessons learned, but in ensuring they are integrated into future project planning and execution to prevent repeated mistakes and drive continuous improvement. This requires a robust process for capturing, disseminating, and acting upon this knowledge, which appears to be lacking or ineffective. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a formal, integrated process for managing lessons learned throughout the project lifecycle. This includes proactive identification during project execution, thorough documentation with clear root cause analysis and actionable recommendations, systematic sharing with relevant stakeholders, including project teams, management, and potentially other departments, and most importantly, deliberate implementation in future project planning and risk management. This aligns with the principles of continuous improvement and organizational learning, which are fundamental to mature project management practices. By embedding lessons learned into standard operating procedures and project templates, organizations can systematically leverage past experiences to enhance future performance, reduce risks, and improve overall project success rates. This proactive and integrated approach is considered best professional practice as it directly addresses the root cause of recurring issues and fosters a culture of learning and adaptation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves merely documenting lessons learned in a repository without a mechanism for review or integration into future project planning. This represents a failure in the implementation phase of the lessons learned process. Ethically, it can be seen as a dereliction of duty to the organization and future project teams, as it wastes valuable knowledge and allows preventable issues to persist. This approach fails to meet the objective of process optimization and continuous improvement. Another incorrect approach is to only share lessons learned informally through team meetings without formal documentation or tracking. While informal sharing has some value, it lacks the structure and accountability needed for effective knowledge transfer and implementation. This approach is prone to knowledge loss, inconsistency, and a lack of clear ownership for acting on the lessons. It fails to establish a reliable system for organizational learning and process optimization. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on identifying lessons learned at the end of project, without actively seeking them during the project lifecycle. Lessons learned are most valuable when identified and addressed proactively during execution, allowing for immediate course correction. Waiting until project closure means that opportunities to prevent or mitigate issues have already been missed, rendering the lessons learned less impactful for that specific project and potentially for future ones if not captured and acted upon promptly. This approach misses the opportunity for real-time process optimization. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first recognizing the systemic nature of the problem indicated by the audit. The decision-making process should prioritize establishing a comprehensive and integrated lessons learned process. This involves defining clear steps for identification, documentation, sharing, and implementation. Professionals should advocate for the integration of lessons learned into project management tools, templates, and training programs. When faced with similar scenarios, a professional should ask, how can we ensure that the knowledge gained from past projects is systematically used to improve future outcomes? This question guides the selection of approaches that emphasize proactive, documented, and integrated knowledge management, rather than passive or ad hoc methods. Question 17. Examination of the data shows that a project team is experiencing challenges with stakeholder engagement due to inconsistent understanding of project progress and upcoming milestones. The project manager needs to improve how project information is distributed and how stakeholder communications are managed to ensure everyone is aligned. Which approach would best address this situation from a stakeholder perspective? Option A. Develop a comprehensive communication plan that categorizes stakeholders by their information needs and preferred communication channels, and then tailor the distribution of project updates accordingly. Option B. Provide stakeholders with direct access to the project's raw data repository and instruct them to extract the information they need for their understanding. Option C. Distribute all project status reports and meeting minutes to every stakeholder via a single, company-wide email list to ensure everyone receives the same information. Option D. Focus on delivering high-level summaries of project progress in all communications, prioritizing speed of dissemination over detailed explanations. The correct answer is A. Develop a comprehensive communication plan that categorizes stakeholders by their information needs and preferred communication channels, and then tailor the distribution of project updates accordingly. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in project management, ensuring effective communication with a diverse stakeholder group, each with unique information needs and preferred communication channels. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for comprehensive information dissemination with the risk of information overload or misinterpretation, all while adhering to the PMP's emphasis on stakeholder engagement and transparent communication. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate communication strategy that maximizes understanding and minimizes potential conflicts arising from communication breakdowns. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core principles of effective stakeholder communication as outlined in the PMP framework. By tailoring communication methods to individual stakeholder preferences and needs, the project manager fosters trust, ensures that critical information is received and understood, and proactively manages expectations. This aligns with the PMP's guidance on developing a communication management plan that considers audience, content, and delivery methods, thereby promoting transparency and informed decision-making among stakeholders. This proactive and personalized approach minimizes the likelihood of misunderstandings and ensures that all parties feel valued and informed, which is crucial for project success and stakeholder satisfaction. An incorrect approach that relies solely on a single, broad communication method fails to acknowledge the diverse needs of stakeholders. This can lead to certain stakeholders not receiving or understanding critical information, potentially causing delays, rework, or dissatisfaction. Ethically, this approach could be seen as a failure to adequately inform all parties, potentially violating principles of transparency and fairness. Another incorrect approach that focuses only on distributing raw data without context or analysis overlooks the importance of making information digestible and actionable for stakeholders. This can result in confusion, misinterpretation, and a lack of engagement, as stakeholders may not have the time or expertise to derive meaning from the raw data. This can be considered a failure in effective communication, as the intent is to inform, not just to transmit data. An approach that prioritizes speed over clarity and accuracy in communication risks disseminating misinformation or incomplete information. This can erode trust and lead to poor decision-making by stakeholders, ultimately jeopardizing project objectives. This directly contradicts the PMP's emphasis on delivering accurate and timely information to support project progress. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough stakeholder analysis to identify their communication preferences, information needs, and influence levels. Based on this analysis, a communication management plan should be developed that outlines specific strategies for each stakeholder group. This plan should be regularly reviewed and updated as stakeholder needs evolve. The project manager should actively solicit feedback on the effectiveness of communication methods and be prepared to adapt their approach to ensure that all stakeholders remain informed and engaged throughout the project lifecycle. Question 18. Performance analysis shows that a key deliverable is significantly behind schedule due to an unexpected technical challenge encountered by the development team. The project manager needs to decide on the next steps. Option A. Immediately implement a drastic schedule compression technique, such as crashing the remaining tasks, without fully understanding the impact on quality or team morale. Option B. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the technical challenge and explore potential solutions, including replanning or resource reallocation, before proposing a course of action. Option C. Inform senior management of the delay and request immediate intervention without first investigating the technical challenge or proposing any solutions. Option D. Continue with the current plan, assuming the team will eventually overcome the technical challenge on their own, and avoid any immediate corrective actions. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the technical challenge and explore potential solutions, including replanning or resource reallocation, before proposing a course of action. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the project manager to balance the immediate need for corrective action with the long-term implications of process adherence and stakeholder trust. The project manager must interpret performance data, understand its root causes, and select an intervention that is both effective and compliant with project governance and ethical standards. The pressure to deliver on time and within budget can create a temptation to bypass formal processes, which could lead to future problems. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation of the root cause of the performance deviation before implementing any corrective actions. This aligns with the principles of effective project management as outlined in the PMP framework, which emphasizes data-driven decision-making and proactive problem-solving. By understanding why the deviation occurred, the project manager can implement solutions that address the underlying issues, preventing recurrence and ensuring sustainable project performance. This also upholds the ethical obligation to be honest and transparent with stakeholders about project status and the rationale behind decisions. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a corrective action without understanding the root cause is a failure to apply due diligence and can lead to wasted resources or ineffective solutions. This bypasses the monitoring and controlling processes designed to ensure quality and efficiency, potentially violating project charter requirements or organizational policies. It also risks misleading stakeholders about the true state of the project and the effectiveness of interventions. Escalating the issue to senior management without attempting initial analysis or proposing potential solutions demonstrates a lack of initiative and problem-solving capability. While escalation is sometimes necessary, it should be a last resort after the project manager has exercised their responsibility to investigate and propose remedies. This approach could be seen as shirking responsibility and failing to uphold the professional duty to manage the project effectively. Ignoring the performance deviation and hoping it resolves itself is a clear abdication of the project manager's responsibilities. This is not only unprofessional but also unethical, as it knowingly allows a project to deviate from its planned course without intervention, potentially leading to significant negative consequences for the project and its stakeholders. This directly contravenes the ethical principle of responsibility and the professional obligation to deliver value. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance deviations by first gathering and analyzing data to identify the root cause. This analytical phase should be followed by developing a set of potential corrective actions, evaluating their feasibility and impact, and then selecting the most appropriate solution. The decision-making process should always be guided by the project's objectives, stakeholder expectations, and adherence to established project management methodologies and ethical principles. Transparency and communication with stakeholders are crucial throughout this process. Question 19. The risk matrix shows a high probability of a critical component delivery delay impacting the project schedule. The vendor has submitted an invoice for the first milestone payment, but the delivered component exhibits a minor cosmetic imperfection that does not affect its functionality. The project manager needs to process this payment to maintain a positive vendor relationship and avoid further delays. Option A. Process the milestone payment and separately inform the vendor that future payments will be delayed until all cosmetic issues are rectified, without a formal change process. Option B. Immediately process the milestone payment without any further action, prioritizing the vendor relationship and avoiding any potential conflict over the cosmetic imperfection. Option C. Process the milestone payment after documenting the cosmetic imperfection and initiating a formal change request to address its resolution or impact on final acceptance, ensuring alignment with contract terms for future payments. Option D. Withhold the milestone payment until the vendor addresses the cosmetic imperfection, as per the contract's quality standards, and issue a formal notice of nonconformance. The correct answer is C. Process the milestone payment after documenting the cosmetic imperfection and initiating a formal change request to address its resolution or impact on final acceptance, ensuring alignment with contract terms for future payments. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the project manager to balance the immediate need for a critical component with the contractual obligations and financial controls established during procurement. The project manager must ensure that payments align with the contract terms and that any deviations are properly managed to avoid financial disputes, legal repercussions, and damage to the vendor relationship. Adhering to the PMP framework's emphasis on ethical conduct and compliance with contractual agreements is paramount. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic and documented process for managing contract changes and payments. This aligns with the PMP's guidance on procurement administration, which stresses the importance of verifying deliverables against contract requirements before authorizing payment. It also upholds the principle of fair dealing with vendors by ensuring they are compensated according to the agreed-upon terms, and that any modifications to those terms are formally documented and approved. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of disputes and ensures financial transparency and accountability. An incorrect approach that involves immediate payment without verification of deliverables fails to adhere to contractual obligations and sound financial management principles. This could lead to overpayment, nonconformance with project requirements, and potential disputes with the vendor. Ethically, it bypasses the agreed-upon process and could be seen as a lack of due diligence, potentially exposing the organization to financial loss. Another incorrect approach that involves delaying payment due to a minor, undocumented deviation from the contract, without engaging the vendor in a formal change control process, is also professionally unsound. This can damage the vendor relationship, delay project progress, and potentially lead to claims for late payment. It violates the principle of good faith and fair dealing by not addressing issues through the established contractual mechanisms. A third incorrect approach that involves unilaterally deciding to withhold payment without following the contract's dispute resolution or change order procedures is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This can result in legal action, penalties, and severe damage to the organization's reputation. It demonstrates a lack of respect for the contractual agreement and the vendor's rights. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the contract terms thoroughly, especially regarding deliverables, payment schedules, and change control. 2. Assessing the impact of any deviation from the contract, considering both technical and financial aspects. 3. Following the established change control process for any proposed modifications. 4. Verifying deliverables against contract requirements before authorizing payments. 5. Communicating openly and transparently with the vendor throughout the process. 6. Documenting all actions and decisions meticulously. Question 20. Analysis of a situation where a project manager is tasked with initiating a new strategic initiative. The project manager understands the importance of a project charter, but is facing pressure from senior management to quickly assemble a team and begin exploring potential solutions. The project manager is also aware that some key stakeholders have not yet been formally identified or consulted. What is the most appropriate course of action for the project manager to ensure the project is initiated effectively and in accordance with best practices? Option A. Prioritize the formal development and approval of the project charter, ensuring it clearly defines project goals, objectives, scope, key stakeholders, high-level requirements, constraints, and assumptions, and obtain formal authorization before proceeding with team assembly or detailed planning. Option B. Focus on identifying and engaging with as many potential stakeholders as possible to gather a broad range of initial ideas, delaying formal charter documentation until a consensus on direction emerges. Option C. Immediately assemble a core project team and begin brainstorming potential solutions to demonstrate progress, deferring the formal project charter development until initial solution concepts are clearer. Option D. Proceed with defining high-level project goals and objectives, but defer the formal authorization of the project charter until after the initial project scope and requirements have been more thoroughly investigated by the assembled team. The correct answer is A. Prioritize the formal development and approval of the project charter, ensuring it clearly defines project goals, objectives, scope, key stakeholders, high-level requirements, constraints, and assumptions, and obtain formal authorization before proceeding with team assembly or detailed planning. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in project management: the critical need for a well-defined and authorized project charter to establish a clear foundation for the project. The difficulty lies in ensuring all essential elements are captured and agreed upon by key stakeholders before significant resources are committed or work begins. A poorly developed charter can lead to scope creep, stakeholder dissatisfaction, and ultimately, project failure. The correct approach emphasizes the foundational role of the project charter in formally authorizing the project and outlining its core parameters. It aligns with the PMP framework's emphasis on initiating the project with clarity and stakeholder buy-in. By defining goals, objectives, scope, stakeholders, high-level requirements, constraints, and assumptions, and by formally obtaining authorization, the project manager establishes a clear mandate and direction. This ensures that all parties understand the project's purpose, boundaries, and key players, which is crucial for effective planning and execution. This approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to the principles of project initiation as outlined in the PMP framework, ensuring a solid starting point and minimizing ambiguity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on gathering detailed requirements without formal authorization fails to establish the project's legitimacy and the project manager's authority. This can lead to unauthorized work, conflicting priorities, and a lack of accountability. Ethically, it bypasses the formal approval process, undermining organizational governance. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate team formation and task assignment before defining project goals and scope is premature. This can result in the team working on activities that are not aligned with the project's true objectives, leading to wasted effort and a lack of strategic direction. It also fails to secure the necessary buy-in and understanding from stakeholders regarding the project's purpose. Finally, an approach that delays the formal authorization of the project charter until later in the project lifecycle is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. The charter is the document that formally initiates the project and grants the project manager the authority to proceed. Without this, the project lacks official sanction, and the project manager's actions may not be recognized or supported by the organization. This can lead to disputes over authority, resource allocation, and project direction, all of which are detrimental to project success and professional conduct. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes the formal initiation phase. This involves understanding the purpose and components of the project charter, actively engaging with sponsors and key stakeholders to define these elements, and ensuring that the charter is formally approved before proceeding with detailed planning and execution. This structured approach ensures alignment, authorization, and a clear understanding of the project's intent and boundaries.